Please adhere to YouTube's selected guidelines before viewing the content of this video. I do not encourage or condone any products, actions, or behaviors shown in this video. All videos are produced in a safe, professional, and controlled environment. Please do not attempt to replicate any actions performed during the video. All actions are performed by professionals.
Alright, so today I'm going to be making breakfast at 1 p.m. on a Tuesday in Japan, which as a whole I am looking forward to doing much more so than not. I'm thinking I'm going to have some scrambled eggs and probably some microwave rice as well if I'm still feeling hungry after that. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get out of bed just real quick, and let's go ahead and just make my bed. You know, a good day starts off with making your bed. Without further ado, let's go ahead and turn on my bedroom light, and let's turn on all the other lights, including the kitchen and hallway light. So now that I have done that, I do suppose without further ado, it is time for me to go ahead and get everything I need to make breakfast all ready. Let's get the eggs out. I have these eggs right here, which I got at a grocery store yesterday, but my rice, of course, is not in the refrigerator. It is instead right here. I should probably not have my rice right here, right next to the burner. That's probably a bad idea in all honesty, so I'm gonna move my rice just over to this table real quick, I do think. Now that I've gotten the food all out of the fridge, I'm thinking I should probably go ahead and get the pan that I'm gonna be cooking on all out as well. I think this is it right here, and hopefully the non-stick wants to work pretty well. We will find out. I might just rinse this pan off real quick, as I don't know how long it's been in there and how much dust is on it. We can see the burner I'm going to be using during this video today is a pretty basic gas burner. Nothing really super special by any means. Let's just test it out, make sure it actually works before I start trying to make breakfast and I can't figure it out, or I find out that it doesn't work. Do I need to like twist one of these knobs or something? Just like, maybe not. Oh, maybe like that. Maybe. Let's try it now. Ah, figured it out. There we go. There we go. Then I can just turn it down like that. Okay, perfect. I now know how to use the gas. I am also gonna figure out how to turn on this fan up here, which I think is just that's not that. That is this light right here. Where is the thing I use to turn this on? Is there something on the cord, or is it a power outlet? Ventilation? That's not that fan. I think that's just for the bathroom. Let's see, ventilation, here we go. Is it this one? Nope, that's just for the bathroom. Oh, it's this, isn't it? That is it. It's just this little piece of twine. Okay, let's go and wash off this pan real quick though. And I'm just gonna go and open up my blinds just to get even some better lighting going. Although it's not really like I have much of a view, because this is all like, I don't know what to call this glass, but it's all like, not stained glass, but like, I don't know, it's some type of glass that you can't really see through. But I'm gonna go and put this down just like that, I'm thinking. And, you know, I'm thinking I'm gonna go ahead and wash the pan I have right here real quick. And now that I have just kind of rinsed it out, I'm just going to go and dry it off. I don't have any paper towels, so I'm just going to use a rag. Should probably go ahead and set up the burner. And can you all see everything properly? I think you guys can see. I think I might move that down just a little bit like that. There we go. I think y'all can see everything properly. I hope at least we will find out. But let's go ahead and get my eggs all opened up if I possibly can. Can I figure out how to do this? Is it? Oh, here we go. It's a piece of tape on this side. There we go. That was a very satisfying noise, like actually, that was very satisfying. And I'm gonna go and get my oil open as well, because I got some rapeseed oil for my food yesterday. I find it interesting, they don't really sell PAM or like aerosol cooking oils in Japan. I haven't found any, let me put it that way, and I also think I need to find a knife. This is I think this is a plastic knife. This is a plastic knife? What is this for? I don't know. But let's see if it helps me get this open. Wow, that actually worked amazingly. Holy crap, that's awesome. Let's go and get this open. And let's go ahead and grab... I picked up some Himalayan pink, like, rock salt for my scrambled eggs as well yesterday. And I was just going to buy normal salt, but then this stuff was actually cheaper than, like, the normal salt. So I was like, okay, never mind. I'm just going to buy this instead. How do I get this open as well? I think I just go like that, probably. Maybe this knife is, like, literally meant for just, like, opening stuff. And if so, like, actually gas, because, like, it does open stuff pretty well. And, like, I am at no risk of cutting myself, which is awesome. Now, I'm going to go ahead and get my pepper all opened up as well. There we go, just got my black pepper. I like eggs and pepper. Or, sorry, I'm getting words all jumbled up. I like salt and pepper in my scrambled eggs. So that's what I'm going for. Just going to go and put that back real quick. And I think I should probably go and get myself a fork out and a plate out as well. So I go ahead and have something to actually put my food on. Very, very unique plate, I will acknowledge. And this fork, honestly, pretty nice. I quite like this fork. This plate is very unique. I kind of feel bad for eating on it. I never eat on plates with designs just because I'm like, I don't want to scratch the design or anything like that, but this is the supplied plate. And there's no other options that are the same size with no designs, so it's what I'm going to go with. I'm just going to put the plate right there. I'm going to go ahead and, I think, get to actually cooking some food. So first off, let's go ahead, get this bottle all opened up just like that. Put a bunch in, you know what I'm saying? And close that back up. Put that over there, away from the burner. And now, let's see if I can figure out how I want to position the camera. Can I position it like that? No, that's not going to work. I think positioning it like right around there is probably going to be the best. That's what I'm thinking at least. So I'm going to go with that. I think my head is kind of cut off a little bit, so I might move it back. There we go. All right, just trying to get the camera positioning correctly. But now that I've done that, let's go ahead and make up some scrambled eggs. I think I'm going to have 4 eggs. I'm tempted to go for 5 because eggs in Japan come in packs of 10, not 12. So I kind of want to do 5 just to have like an even number of eggs just like left for me to make scrambled eggs with. So then I'm not like, okay, I have like 2 days of 4 and then 1 day of 2. So I can do like 5 and 5 and then I just get myself another pack. But I think I'm going to do 4 because I think 5 is a bit overkill in all honesty. So let's do that. I got a little piece of shell in there. Just going to try to get that out with my finger real quick. And thankfully I was able to. I am not very good at like opening eggs without getting like egg juice all over me. In all honesty, it's not a talent of mine. But it is something I do need to work on. But those are all the eggs. I'm going to go put that back over there and wash my hands real quick. I can't pick up my camera though, because otherwise I'm going to get egg all over my camera. Now that I've done that, I do think it's time for me to go and add my salt and pepper. I think I'm going to go for my pepper first, probably. That's what I'm thinking at least. I say a little bit, but that's actually quite a bit of pepper. And move that over to the side, and now I'm going to add in some salt. Alright, I like my salt, I like my pepper, I will acknowledge. And now that I have done all that, let's go ahead and grab the spatula. I think this is the only spatula I have. I'm just going to check to see if they're... Oh man, those drawers are not as deep as I thought they were. I think this is the only spatula I have, so it's the one I'm going to use. I don't see any others, so I'm going to go ahead and just mix all this up real quick. And this is a big spatula for my uses, though. I do not need a spatula this big. I'm going to have to hold it on the side. But just going to go ahead and mix it up just real quick before I actually go ahead and get to cooking. Alrighty, and there we go. And now that I've done that, I'm gonna try to figure out a place to just kind of set this down without it dripping egg everywhere. Should I just use another plate and just use the plate as the holder for this? I think I will, honestly. I'm just gonna put that over there and just use that as a spatula holder. I'll clean it off afterwards. And now let's go ahead and get my eggs cooking, I do think. So let's see if I can do that properly. I've got the gas on, and let it go for a minute and turn it down because I do not want, I don't know if you guys can see the gas on camera, but it's there. I do not want full strength. I'm gonna go with, I think, right around like medium to strong, and that's what I'm gonna go with. So I'm gonna let the bottom kind of harden up a little bit. I'm gonna go ahead and scrape it, and then I'm just gonna keep rotating it around until my eggs are done. That's the plan, at least. I wouldn't mind having a scrambled egg pancake today, I will acknowledge, but I don't know if this pan is non-stick enough to make that possible. I will acknowledge I've not had a very good experience with non-stick pans at Airbnbs in Japan. I really like my non-stick pans in the United States, but I'm not willing to bring them to Japan, although it is very tempting to pull a Samwise Gamgee and to literally bring my own cookware everywhere I go, because at half the places I stay, I'm like, this is the worst spatula I've ever used. I'm like, this is the worst pan I've ever used. I hate some of the kitchen equipment that is supplied by Airbnbs, I'll acknowledge, but this Airbnb seems to have a solid setup, although a very minimal setup, I will acknowledge. This pan looks like it'll work somewhat well non-stick wise. We'll find out whether that's the case or not. And this spatula is pretty nice as well. Like, I literally stayed at one Airbnb the last time I was here where I was using the spatula and I was just like using it normally kind of thing, just like using it to cook, and it started melting. It started melting into my food, and I was like, what the hell? I literally had to go out and buy another spatula before I could like actually properly make food. I was just like, what is this spatula for if it's not for cooking in a pan? Like, it actually just started to melt. I was like, this is so sad. But thankfully the nonstick seems to be alright. It's not like catching everything and making everything horrible like other pans have. Thankfully, I will acknowledge. But yeah, now we just gotta play the waiting game. While we're waiting, I'm gonna go and put the eggs back in the refrigerator, and I'm thinking I'm definitely gonna be hungry after I have some eggs, so I'm gonna go and get my rice all ready as well. I have some of this rice with me today. It's a pretty solid brand of rice in my personal opinion. I enjoy it quite a bit. And yeah, wow, this pan is actually good. Thank God. I love my good kitchenware. I love my good pans. A good pan is something that is absolutely worth purchasing. Skimping on kitchenware will just make your life a living hell. I don't care if you don't cook. I don't care. Get yourself some nice kitchenware. Absolutely a genuinely worthwhile thing to do. But I'm just going to continue letting that do its thing. And in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and just figure out this microwave real quick. So the microwave that we've got over here is a higher microwave, and it's got the 500, 200 watt, 700 watt as well settings, and it looks like I just set it for minutes, just like that, and yeah, it's pretty simple, nothing too complex. For my rice, it says 500, 600 watts is 2 minutes, or 1,000 watts is 1 minute 30 seconds. Let's do, I'm thinking the 500 watts for 2 minutes. And while I'm not going to start it quite yet, I am going to go ahead and just put it in the microwave so it's ready to go whenever I want it to be, so I don't have to mess with that in a little bit. Let's go ahead and just try to mess with my eggs just a little bit. Man, this nonstick is goated. I genuinely have not used a good nonstick pan in like over a month, and I am going through like, I am addicted to nonstick pans. Like, I hate using, like, I have been so spoiled by good nonstick pans, and I do need to try a cast iron pan that's been like properly seasoned as well. I've never used a properly seasoned cast iron pan. I do need to do that. I've heard those are just as good as like some of the best nonstick out there, but I have been going through like nonstick pan remissions, I'm not gonna lie, because just so many of the pans at Airbnbs I stay at are just so garbage. But thankfully, this pan at this Airbnb, gas, yo, absolutely gas. No complaints on my behalf, let me tell y'all what. It is tempting to have that sake I've got in the fridge, but honestly, I think I'm not going to. Because I'm gonna be having some drinks later, I already know I am. And I don't want to get myself too much of a buzz too early. I think later today, I'm trying to figure out what I want to do for the day, I'll acknowledge. I did sleep at a bit late, and it's already a bit warm outside, so I don't think I'm going to be, like, hiking today or anything like that kind of thing. Like, if I was going to do that, I'd want to get up at, like, 4 or 5 a.m., not 1 p.m. I think today, I did read yesterday that there's a little bit of a baseball game going on. I think it's the Hiroshima... Is it the Hiroshima Carps? I can't remember what their name is, but apparently they're playing against the Hanshin Tigers from, I think it is Osaka. And I was thinking I might try to walk up to the ticket box and get myself a, well, ticket. I was thinking I might try to do that because I've never been to a Japanese baseball game before. So I was thinking that might be something fun for me to do. And I'm sure that while I'm there, I'm going to be having some alcohol, so I don't think I want to have any quite yet. I don't want to tire myself out too early in the morning when I've got stuff I want to do later on today. Now, I'm sure to some of y'all, these scrambled eggs already look quite done. And honestly, they're looking pretty done to me as well, but I like crispy scrambled eggs. I like scrambled eggs with a little bit of brown on them, I'll acknowledge. I'm going to let them keep going just for a moment. But yeah, looking good, smelling good, no complaints on my behalf. Let me tell y'all what. This spatula, though, my one complaint, this spatula is huge. It's massive. Just like these nuts. Got them. Alright. Make sure that's off. It is. Go and turn off the gas, just like that. And let's go ahead and set this down. Grab my plate I have right here and pour the eggs onto it. Just like that. Easy peasy. Go and put this back down. And now, let's go ahead and move my plate over to the table, which is a glass top table. I am high-key very scared of glass top tables, I'm not gonna lie, because I'm afraid if I set something down like too hard on them, like it's just gonna smash them, which honestly I think is a warranted fear, I will acknowledge. But just trying to think of how I want to like set up my camera for this, and I think something like that will work perfectly. I just put my camera on my rice. That'll work perfectly though. I'm just gonna let this cool down and I'm gonna grab myself a glass of water real quick. I do think I've got this glass I've been drinking out of, or this mug I've been drinking out of. I think I'm gonna drink out of this. So let's go ahead and grab myself some water real quick. And let's sit back down and get to eating after I take a sip of water. I do think. Big ball of moves, you know what I'm saying? Making breakfast at 1 p.m. on a Tuesday in Japan. No complaints on my behalf. And very solid mug as well. There's like a ring going around the top of the mug that is like just a little bit like bent outward, which makes it where it's actually kind of harder to spill like water or whatever you're drinking on you if you like accidentally take too big of a sip, which is actually pretty solid. Because that'd be something I low-key be doing, I'm not gonna lie. Maybe a spoon would have been better for this, though, in all honesty. I did mash up my scrambled eggs quite a bit. But it's alright. I can always grab a spoon if I need one. I'm just going to take it slow, though. I haven't eaten anything since, I want to say, like, 10:30 last night. So it's been like almost 14 hours. Well, I think about 14 hours. Probably more like 15. So I'm just going to take it slowly. I don't want to overwhelm myself with the food by any means. But this is a pretty general representation of what my breakfast looks like, in all honesty, whether it be in the United States or in Japan. A lot of times I'll just make some scrambled eggs or a scrambled egg pancake, which is basically just me making scrambled eggs, but then I don't really ever mash them up. I just kind of let the bottom solidify and then I flip it and it goes to the top, which I do think I could do this with this pan. I just wasn't sure and I didn't want to like burn the hell out of the bottom of it. So I think I might do that tomorrow when I make some more eggs, but I generally make eggs pretty much just like this in the United States. I'll be with a little bit more salt and pepper. I'm not used to this salt and pepper shaker that I have, so I wasn't sure how much salt and pepper I was really putting on there, but I do think I could use more of both in all honesty. And sometimes I'll have rice for breakfast in the United States, not microwave rice. I have a rice maker at home and I'll just make rice and then just eat it over like the next 2 days. But most of the time for breakfast in the United States, I tend to just have like some brown and served breakfast sausage and stuff like that, just some extra protein. But if I'm wanting some carbs, I'll have some rice as well. But I don't think they sell brown and served breakfast sausage in Japan. I haven't found it, let me put it that way. Like they have Johnsonville, but that's like I actually have to cook that. I can't just microwave it. So, but yeah, no, I do believe that breakfast is a very important meal. I like starting off my day with a good meal. Like, I don't want breakfast to be like anything overly complex. Like, don't get me wrong, I love going to breakfast places and like eating really nice stuff for breakfast. But like, if I'm cooking myself, it's nothing complex. Pretty fire plate though. This apparently this is like Gimme branded or something. I don't know what that is. If y'all recognize the art, let me know. And if it turns out I'm eating on a $2,000 plate, that would be hilarious, but I highly doubt that. Yeah, I do find it really interesting though, that like Japanese eggs don't come in like packs of 12, they only come in packs of 10, which is really interesting. That and some places don't refrigerate the eggs. Some places have them like in like a mildly refrigerated section, but some places don't. It's very unique. Well, compared to what I'm used to as an American. I've been to Mexico where eggs are not refrigerated as well, but I'm like, I'm putting the eggs in the refrigerator. That's what I'm used to, so that's what I'm doing. I can't remember why eggs aren't refrigerated in Japan and like Mexico, but like they have to be refrigerated in the United States. So I know there's like some actual reason. I just don't remember what it is. Almost done with my eggs though. And now I think it's time for some rice. It's already in the microwave. Just gotta set it to, I think it was 2 minutes. Just like that. And I think we are all good. Oh wait. Okay, yes, I did peel that up. I was afraid I had forgotten to peel that up for a second. I'm glad I did. I'm glad I did peel that up. Almost done though, probably got like another 10 seconds. I'm ready for some rice. I'm ready for some more food, I'll acknowledge. No complaints on my behalf. Well, there it is, there it is. Let's get my rice out, y'all. I should probably use 2 hands for this, but... Alright, rice time. I do like my rice. But is it better than the rice I make in my Zurishi rice maker? The answer is no. I already know it's no because I've had this rice right here before. In fact, this is my go-to microwave rice in Japan. I've had it before, and it is not better than the rice I make in my Zurishi rice maker. I can say with confidence. Just gonna go and mix this up just real quick. Just get it where it cools down a bit faster because I don't want to wait forever for it to cool down. This is very good rice. Personally, it's a bit too sticky for me, but it's very solid nonetheless. This is some good rice, though. I'm very glad I decided to have some rice along with my eggs today, I will acknowledge. Definitely a good move. And that is my rice, all done. No complaints on my behalf. I think I'm gonna let my stomach settle for a minute. My stomach's feeling very full. And I feel like if I get up right now, I am just gonna be feeling not so great. I did eat that rice a little bit too fast to do things, so I'm just gonna chill for a minute. And then I think I'm gonna go have one of these outside. I think that's my plan. Always gotta have an after meal snack after all. And go ahead and put my slippers on real quick that the host was kind enough to provide. Close that. And let's real quick take a look at the view. These are the bullet train tracks up there, and then there's also some like freight trains that run on them. I want to say, if I remember correctly, I might be wrong about that. Or no, those are over there. So the freight train tracks are over there, with the bullet train tracks being up there. Hiroshima Station is only like a 10-minute walk, I want to say. And overall, this is a pretty good spot. I quite like the location of this Airbnb, I will acknowledge. And overall, very nice, solid view. Oh, there's the bullet train right now. What perfect timing. I think that's a 16-car one, because it's pretty long. But, well, and there's I guess the commuter lines run on that one as well. This is a pretty good spot for train spotting, I'm not gonna lie, and this is also a great spot for car spotting as well, because there's a parking lot right here with a very nice Jimny and a Toyota Blade, just like the movie Blade. That's crazy. But yeah, that Jimny is really nice. I really like old Jimnys like that. I think they're super sick. I could absolutely go for like a Suzuki Samurai or like an old Jimny as a car. I would not mind having one of those one bit, in all honesty. I've just got my ashtray right here. It's just a can of Coca-Cola that I've set the top up so I can just kind of scrape it and go right down, so it goes right down so it don't cause a mess. Great ashtray, what can I say? It really is very pretty today though, I'm not gonna lie, y'all. Like, look at this. Look at this view. Look at the clouds over there. Got the tracks, got the car park in front of me. Now this is what I'm talking about. Like, it's not the most nature-centric view possible, but it certainly is a good view nonetheless. And I just finished that off, and wow, there's a freight train going by. I want to see freight trains in Japan, definitely a little bit shorter than ones in the United States. I want to see if it's got a locomotive at the end though. Will it have a locomotive? No, no locomotive at the end. I saw the locomotive at the front, but I didn't have the chance to show y'all. Didn't register in time. But I finished off what I had. I'm gonna go put this down on the ground just so it doesn't get, excuse me, just so it doesn't get knocked over. And I'm gonna go and walk back inside. I think. Go and close that. Open my door back up. Just like that. Thankfully, didn't accidentally lock myself out. That would be pretty bad, if I do say so myself. I've had a, excuse me. I've had a great time eating breakfast, making breakfast at 1 p.m. on a Tuesday in Japan. I've had a great time today, and hope you guys have had a great time watching. Appreciate y'all watching today's video. If you guys have enjoyed watching this video, of course, like, subscribe, check out everything in the description down below. And of course, as well, make sure to have a great rest of your day. Yes sir, you know what I'm saying?